How's everybody doing today? Thanks for tuning in again. Another big day yesterday. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, ringing the bell so that we can get to the place on YouTube where our guest is with 120,000 subscribers. It's big time on all over the place. But make sure you're liking, subscribing, ringing the bell. And remember, we got 6 hours of programming all day, starting at 12, midday money with Sean Higgs, Morning Wood, Allie Burns, just Parlays, Chris King, back to the window, Scott and Scott. It's me at 4 to 5, and then 5 to 6 game time decisions. So I'm going to bring our guest in. Adam McCullough is joining us from the UK right now. I don't. Did you get a chance to watch any of that England game yesterday, or were you a little disappointed in that? Or
I'll be honest with you, I don't really pay attention to much international football until a World Cup or a Euros or some sort of tournament swings around. I didn't. I seen maybe 10 minutes of it, but I wasn't paying any attention, so I can't say I watched it. I saw that Harry Kane got closer to Rooney's record, which annoyed me.
90. Yeah, because they're playing 800 games. These games. Now we were talking about this. The Nations League. I went to the first one in Portugal in 2019. I thought it was pretty cool when it was in the off season and as a lead up to the World Cup, obviously. But these teams aren't playing their best players in these games. I mean, you see some of these games; they're sitting players. Wales is playing the Netherlands today. They just qualified for the World Cup on Sunday. They're all drunk all night. They got to come back and play a game. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous that the season just ended and they're kind of cramming it in. And then you got the Premier League starting in about 7 weeks or something like that. It's crazy. I mean, it's you guys need to rest at some point, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a real weird timing, especially for when I did notice there were Nation League games. It's like these are supposed to be somewhat competitive, and then to have them straight after the season. But I think it's going to be. I think that's just going to be what we're going to see now going forward, especially when you look at the timing of the World Cup. There's going to be so many injuries left, right, and centre. They're going to have to cram this league campaign in. It's still going to finish around the same time next year, so I think you're going to see a lot of injuries.
I think the thing that's a little bit crazy too is because they have the Nations League games in September, late September, early October, and that I can see because the Premier League is playing. I mean, they said today, they don't want any of the big six playing on that November 13th. They're playing up to like 8 days before the tournament starts. And I just think, a lot of times with the World Cup, you have it in June and players get injured in March or whatever, and they're back. I mean, here, I just don't. I think there's going to be a lot of teams going into this with some injuries, and you just don't know who's going to, Harry Kane for England, he gets banged up all the time. Like, there's going to be some big players missing from this World Cup just because it's in the middle of the season.
I think you'll also find players probably dropping out for their clubs with back injuries and all these kind of little things as well, like trying to protect themselves ahead of the World Cup. But yeah, there's gonna be a few big injuries going into it that you won't be able to avoid because of the timing of them. Especially, I didn't realize, was it 8 days you said between?
Yeah, they play they're gonna play the match week on. It was supposed to start on November 18th. They actually moved it back to the 21st. When you looked at the schedule originally, it was going to start November 18th on that Friday, and they were going to try to play up until the 13th, which is 5 days before. So they said they moved it back to the 21st, and the final, I think, is the 20th. But, I mean, you're playing a game week, and you're jumping on a plane, and there's no time to, these teams are playing that 20, and, you got to hit the ground running, some of these teams, like, France or US, whatever it is. I mean, here in the US, obviously the MLS will still just be ending, so maybe they'll be all right. But
it might benefit some of those non-European teams, and the teams that have the traditional seasons. It might hinder those guys a little bit if the France or England or someone has some big injuries, and those other teams that don't have to deal with a season coming straight in off the back of it, might be benefited.
Is there a lot of hype around? I know England made the final last year and lost, and penalties. Is there a lot of kind of hype going around this team now? Is the kind of the mentality there in England that this team could win the World Cup for first time since 1966?
I don't really pay much attention to it. I think
Global country, right?
pretty much so. Look, when the World Cup comes around, I want them to do well. But when you look at the squad, they've got a lot of talent in that squad. You know, they've got loads of right backs, loads of, pretty good attacking players. When you look even at, the likes of Phil Foden, you got Jadon Sancho, you got all these players that are getting better with age and, going to be more experienced by the time the World Cup comes around. Plenty more players that I haven't mentioned. Obviously, Harry Kane's one of the best strikers in the world, if not the best striker in the world at the moment. I know Karim Benzema's got something to say about that. But when you're looking around, England have a great squad. The only thing why I don't necessarily think they will do it is because of Gareth Southgate. But that won't stop. The question was, is there going to be hype around England? I think there will be hype around England when the World Cup comes around because the squad does have so many talents in it. And I think there'll be a fair few big players that probably miss out as well.
Here in America, sometimes, I'll go during I think right before the pandemic, or maybe it was like right after, we went to go see the U.S. play, and I don't know, Suriname, it's one of these teams. And they're like, oh, how come you don't care about the U.S.? I mean, you're a Manchester United fan. I mean, you got these, you're rooting for England, and they got, half the 3/4 of the team is from Liverpool and Chelsea and stuff like that. Is that like, I know some of the smaller teams.
I don't know if that comes into it for me. I don't know. In the past, I used to, like when I was a little kid, I really supported England. And then there was like the David Beckham thing and the Phil Neville thing. And, as a United fan, you kind of think, eh. And then just culturally anyway, like my family's Irish, so I kind of want Ireland to do well. Like I'm Indian as well, so I know India don't really participate, but I don't. International football to me just isn't as tribal. Like it's kind of like watching the Olympics or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like club football is where my tribalism comes into it. So
yes,
yeah, I'm just indifferent to it. Although this England team, to be fair, there were times where you just couldn't. Like I didn't want John Terry to lift a trophy. Do you know what I mean? Like never ever. But if this England team were to lift a trophy, I don't think there's any player that I really look at and think, oh God, I can't stand you lifting that. Like I don't mind this England team at all.
Do you think France, Brazil, probably obviously on two separate sides of the bracket, hopefully if they win their group. I mean, those two teams look like the top class, and England as well. But, obviously France is, 20 midfielders deep. I don't even know if our guy Pogba is going to get in the squad, get in the lineup there. But I'm just you start looking at this stuff and it.
I think France are probably the favourites.
Yeah.
For me anyway. Obviously Brazil are always the World Cup side that you want to see do well. When you look at the yellow and green shirts and all those kind of things, it's just historically that's what you want to see. I know there's part of me that wants to see Neymar lift the World Cup. Like I'm one of those guys that actually likes Neymar, and I want to see him succeed and kind of fulfill the what he was supposed to as one of those Brazilian greats. So I wouldn't mind seeing Brazil do it, but I do think France are probably the favourites. When you look at, you just mentioned the midfield options. You've obviously got the likes of Kante and Pogba that have already done it. Then you got Tchouaméni coming through, and all these other talents coming through. Camavinga, who's coming through as well. So you look at this France team and you think they're the ones to beat. The Euros winners aren't in there at the moment. So yeah, I'd go France, but I would like to see Brazil do well.
What is your take on the? I know you talk a lot about. We just quickly here. Let me share the screen and show everybody your YouTube channel here. If you want to go over there, see Adam McCullough, 124,000 subscribers, and just make sure when you go over there, he's got all kinds of stuff on the site, and he's on Twitter. He's everywhere. Let me run that at the bottom. He's got all your projects here at the bottom on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and you know, I think the first time I talked to you was at Swansea away back in 2015 outside the stadium with Ian Patterson, and obviously every time I come over, I'm hanging out with Ollie Rowe over there, and coming over and coming on the fan cam. So that was always cool that you let me come on. And you're one of these guys that I think you started with these things, and all of a sudden now you branched out into different. I see you doing some poker stuff sometime.
Yeah.
I see you on with the Geordie guy and everything. I mean, when did you kind of realize you wanted to maybe do this for a living and maybe start to branch out into all these other things?
To be honest, I didn't realize that I could. It kind of just happened. Like, I started it around Fergie's last season, and it was just like I saw a thing for Full-Time Devils saying if you're a United fan and you want to get involved, get in touch. And I was going to games pretty much most weeks with my dad or on the coach or whatever. And I thought, let me just get involved. And I got involved, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I got more involved with the channel. I started doing the interviews, and then obviously about 3 years later, I think it kind of became a point where I could go, right, shall I try and do this for a job? And then I did. So I think because it happened by accident, I think it kind of just progressed naturally for me. And then once it did, then obviously more recently getting invited to do the kickoff as a regular, and that's where the poker stuff's come from. Like, they have a deal with Poker Stars to do poker shows and go to poker events and all those kind of things. So I've been participating in that now, and it's
are you any good?
Definitely.
Are you a good player? Or are you
I'm getting better. Like, so I started off as I'd only played a couple of times, and we started playing in when lockdown happened and around COVID, and at that point I was like using chart rankings for like the hands and all that stuff. I didn't know what I was doing, but gradually I got the bug. I started playing, I started learning, watching loads of videos, things like that, and I have got a little bit better. And now I've been going to live events. Like, we went to one recently in Dublin. And in one of the events, I got to a final table and stuff. So
nice.
I've started to get better. So I'm hoping in a year or two I might have a big win or something that we could talk about. But nothing big yet.
All right. So and I know obviously football is your main one here. I mean, when you look at the Premier League next year, just on your chat, like Manchester United, who they're getting beat to Darwin Nunez, and nobody wants to play for him because they stink and all this stuff. And you just like the transfer stuff is tough because you don't even know like if United's seriously in for him because you have to guess or whatever. I mean, are you like, first of all, obviously probably 2-horse race here between Liverpool and City? Is it pretty clear that that's going to be what the deal is, or you think anybody can jump up and challenge them?
It does feel that way, doesn't it? Obviously. Yeah. I'm not a neutral in a situation, but it is interesting, if that's the word, to see what Conte will do at Spurs if he gets back. Like, because another season, you got Kane, Son, Kulusevski, you got something to work with there. Like, to see what he can do there in a season, even if it will eventually implode. As for Manchester United, I think it's all about just getting us back into the Champions League spots, getting us competitive, getting us playing better football, and then hoping to eventually bridge that gap to City and Liverpool. But it does feel like it's going to be 10 years without a league title. But you do feel at this moment in time that we've finally got the right appointment. Like, you never look, whenever Manchester United made an appointment, I was always behind the manager, for better or worse, and hoping that they could do something. But you looked at David Moyes at the time, it was romantic and stuff because Fergie did it, but the signs were there that it probably wasn't the best choice. Van Gaal was, his better days were behind him. Mourinho, the same could be said. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer probably should never have got the job. And you look at Erik ten Hag, and it kind of feels like we've finally got the managerial appointment right, the one that made sense the most, and all those kind of things. So I'm hoping with that being done, we can build on that. But
They have a good academy
we
too.
got the owners
Yeah,
that are always a hindrance to any manager. So he's got to deal with them too.
I think they have to hope that, 4 or 5 of these academy kids become stars,
Yeah,
Garnacho and I mean
Garner
there is
and
Manu and Hannibal. There are some pretty good players coming through. I mean,
Hannibal's one that I'm excited about.
yeah, I think, I think it's going to be a couple years, which to me, like, I think as a United fan, I know everybody wants to I don't think they'll challenge, but when this Liverpool project starts to run down because they are getting a little bit older, and you see Mane leaves, and I just think as they start to wind down a little bit, you got to hope United's coming up. What any we've talked a little bit about we have one of our people that comes on basically every day and watches the show is a Newcastle fan from Ecuador. Like whatever it is with the owners. I mean, this team obviously with they're spending some money. They're spending money smartly, I think, and it looks like they could. I don't think it's this year they jump, but I think they could make a jump into the top 8, top 6, something like that. And obviously they're going to be a force. I mean, do you see this team maybe 2 years away, 3 years away? Are they challenged to maybe Arsenal, United if they don't turn it around?
I do think eventually they're going to throw enough money at it that they'll be in and around. At least, at the very least, you'd expect the Europa League spots, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say the top 4 stays the same, or United enter that top 4, Chelsea go 5th, or Spurs go 5th, or whatever. That top 5, Arsenal will always be in and around.
Yep.
Some of those. I don't think they're going to get top 4 now. I think they kind of missed their opportunity to do that. But they'll always be in and around the Europa League spots, maybe the European spots. So I think beyond that, Newcastle have got an opportunity.
Oh, got your
Are we
mic.
back?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah, beyond that, I think Newcastle have got an opportunity to push into those European spots and, maybe do something there. And then once they get Europe, they can attract a different level of player again. They've already signed the likes of Bruno Guimaraes, who I think was a great signing. Like you said, they look like they're going to make shrewd signings rather than make any massive mistakes. Although you never know what could happen, who their next manager might be as well. Because is Eddie Howe the guy to get them into Europe and get them pushing into the Champions League? Probably not. I've got a feeling Mourinho ends up there at one point.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, it feels like Mark Hughes at City a little bit. Like Hughes was there, and then he got him to like a certain point, and then it was just clear that he wasn't going to be able to make that next step. Then they brought Mancini in, and then Pellegrini, whatever. But I think that's pretty interesting. I'm sure. Did you get a chance to watch the Champions League final? Were you a little surprised that Real Madrid won? Or I mean, I thought Real Madrid was a better team, to be honest. And I was on March, but
we did the kickoff for it, so I had the pleasure of sitting next to a Liverpool fan for it, which made the end of the season a little bit better for me. But I did say before the semi-finals, like once the semi-final draw had happened, I thought it'd be a Liverpool Real Madrid final and Liverpool would win it. So I was glad to see Real Madrid do it. And it's not a surprise when Real Madrid win the Champions League. You can never say that. Do you know what I mean? They're kind of, that's their competition. That's their bread and butter. You kind of
very
expect
well
them to
run.
do that.
Obviously, I mean, and they also, obviously have the expenses of, they can get whoever. They have such pull. Do you think obviously they're gonna win it at some point. Like this last 2 years seems like obviously they blew a chance again in the final against Chelsea, but do you think City, as the thing goes on, are they going to have more and more pressure on them to win this competition? Obviously it's some Holland now, but Are you surprised they haven't won it at this point with the 2 billion spent?
I'm not surprised because you look at Paris and they've struggled to do it as well, and I think
Yeah.
they've probably had the bigger superstars, if you want, um, and players that are more used to winning Champions League. When you look at Neymar, won it for for Barcelona, and Messi had won it for Barcelona, and they've had players down the years. Di Maria's won it before, and all these kind of things. You expect they had a team that knew how to win it, and they couldn't do it. And Manchester City haven't. They've kind of carried an inferiority complex in the Champions League as well. I feel right down to the fans, where maybe it comes across a little bit where they feel different, and they are different to some teams. Like we just mentioned, Real Madrid, they kind of feel like they have a right to win that competition. I think some clubs, until they get that first one, they won't feel like they belong, and they've got to get that first. They've got to get over the line, and there's a lot. It's a cup competition ultimately. Anything can happen. They've gone out to Monaco, Lyon, some poor teams down the years where they should have beaten them. So yeah, it's going to be difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't win it in the next couple of years. But like you say, with the amount of money they're going to keep signing players, just bringing in Haaland, you'd expect they'd eventually get there.
Yeah, I think their main thing over the last, obviously in the final against Chelsea, they sometimes struggle to score and they struggle to put the ball in the net because they want to walk it in. But like you said, I mean, I think the shocking one was the 2020 when they went out in the quarterfinals to Lyon, and I mean, it was just that one-off tournament. But I think at some point it gives me great pleasure to see that they always keep failing with all this. But you almost like. It's weird. I'm almost like, man, I hope they win one soon. Maybe they'll stop spending some money and they'll go away or something like that. But so I mean, is it too
let
early?
them suffer.
Yeah, that's great. Is it too early to start looking at this stuff? Do you feel like because there's the World Cup? Like I sometimes what the people will ask on here, like, who do you think's going to win this? And I say, look, it's not going to change much between now and February. Who's going to be in the round of 16, but maybe somebody gets injured at the World Cup. There's going to be so many extra games now. Like, Liverpool's played so many extra games, and they broke down the 1 year. Is it too early to look at these teams maybe in a Champions League? Would you wait until maybe after the World Cup and let it settle down a little bit?
Yeah, you'd expect the similar names. You've got some big transfers that are going to happen, and you've got to see how those players settle. You've obviously got the likes of Sadio Mane potentially going to Bayern Munich. You've got, like you mentioned, Darwin Núñez potentially going to Liverpool. You've got all these players potentially moving around to different teams. How are they going to settle? Are they going to be successful signings or not? That's going to impact how these teams perform on those big stages, in those big games towards the end of the season. You've also got the added variables of the World Cup and the fatigue and the injuries and all those kind of things that can come into play. So you might have a few surprises along the way. But I do think it will be the same old kind of names, because those are the teams that you'd expect. Yeah. Like Manchester City are more suited to dealing with this because they've got 24 players that can play week in, week out for Manchester City at a high level. Whereas, if Liverpool don't get their transfers right, with some of the bigger players maybe leaving, maybe they'll suffer because fatigue and injuries will impact their squad more. How will Chelsea cope with the amount of players that are leaving their team? It's very unlikely that what we saw with Liverpool, which was quite an incredible feat of like playing in every game, will happen again. Like one team just... I think that's pretty unlikely with the amount of fixtures coming up.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You said that, Manchester City is always the favorite for the Premier League because they have that big squad. But sometimes I think that hurts them a little bit in the knockout stage because you don't have that, like, Liverpool, Real Madrid know who they're going to, they know who's in the starting lineup in those games. Like, you could pick the lineup for the final. Like, City, sometimes he tinkers and says, I'm not sure, and he kind of moves it around. Obviously, Haaland will be one of the guys now, but sometimes I think that bigger squad will be tough for City. So, but yeah, it's interesting. So, so you have anything you want to plug before? I know you got to get out of here and get on a call. So,
no, just you've done it all really, so I can't really add much more to that.
Oh, at the bottom, yeah, it's all at the bottom. Like, go and subscribe to his YouTube. It's really good. I mean, there's going to be transfer sagas all summer, and maybe we'll get them over here, if they ever come to the US, and we'll set up a poker tournament here in Philadelphia, and we'll see
Yeah,
who.
let's do it.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate
Nice
it.
one, Sean. Good to
Say hi to
speak to you, man.
Osro for me.
Yeah, see you soon, yeah?
All right, I'll see you.
Take care, bro.
All right. That's Adam McCullough. Look, hey, Bill, how's it going? Belgium and Netherlands and a couple of overs have hit. My only loss is Ireland. I haven't seen the scores yet, but make sure you follow him, and, we'll jump on here. We've got another guest coming on in like 2 minutes, so make sure you got your $1,100 first bet insurance, Caesar Sportsbook, ATS wins, SCZR. And I'm going to pull up the odds here because we have a certified. Yeah, Bill, look, I'll say this all the time. The African games are always unders. They're like 1-0, 0-0. They're always unders, to the point where some of the times they say like under 2 and under 1.5, and they still go under. It's pretty crazy. There's not a lot of high scoring games in it, which makes it hard to bet those as well. So, all right. So we got a certified. Oh, look at Belgium on Poland. Ukraine. I'm stunned they showed up here. Netherlands up 1-0. Certified. We got a parlay genius right here. Rick Fortenbaugh joining us today. Rick, I've talked to these guys. Rick is the person on here who likes to do the parlays with, he does the in-play parlays, and the teams maybe, winning 2-0. And Lex, Ireland, screw me. Netherlands need one more. Did you look at any of these? No, Belgium scored again. These Nations League games, I just talked to Adam McCullough about this. It's been tough to bet these games because you just don't know who's going to show up. I'm stunned Ukraine showed up to this game today. I would have thought they would have been, done after their loss, but there they are. They're playing well. So how have you been dealing with these games?
I really haven't been doing anything lately like this. I prefer to do the leagues where I have a better feel.
Yeah.
Just, as you say, it's kind of hard to judge the motivation of some of these teams, and I have no idea what's going to happen. So I say I like to do these parlays, live parlays in league play, especially the EPL. And the secret is don't get greedy. Just try and get it down to like, minus 120, 140, somewhere in there, and let it ride.
Yeah, there's not a lot of the games right now during the week. This international break, it's like the longest break in ever. They're playing all next week. And, there's not a lot of like MLS games. There's a few on Saturday and Sunday. And then, there's some games in Brazil and stuff. But once again, I try. I know we looked at Mexico a few times. I don't think they're playing this weekend. But when you start to you want to tell everybody who your team is, or you want to?
Oh, in Mexico?
No, in the Premier League.
Oh, Arsenal.
So Rick's an Arsenal fan. We were just talking about.
I'm reading here on Sky News, Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus are going to join the Gunners. So,
wow,
that looks good to me.
Yeah, man. If you get those two guys, that's the only prize. Sterling never scores against United because he's a United fan growing up, so that's good. So you guys, that'll be good. But yeah, look, we were just talking about this with Adam, because let me pull up let me put the futures at the bottom here. When you look at the futures for the Premier League, there we go. Manchester City's obviously the favorite at minus 162. And, a lot of that, once again, has to do with the fact that they're so deep. They got just Arsenal, Arsenal top four. I know you had that last year, and that last end of the season kind of tanked them. Do you feel like they have a chance to finish top four this year?
Well, I want to see who they sign. I mean,
Yeah.
I've that's as you know, like the British press with all these rumors and stuff. What do you believe? It's kind of hard.
That's the thing. I mean, it's a little bit crazy because people are asking about some of this stuff now, and say both Belgium. Lex has both teams to score. Belgium and Netherlands team total over 1.5, so he needs another goal for Netherlands. But what they have these odds up for the winner of the Premier League, and obviously City's favorite. But if Liverpool signs Darwin Nunez and some of these other players, and maybe limits who they lose. Obviously, it looks like Sadio Mane is going to go, and I actually think he's their best player. But I think these odds are going to change a little bit. So it's pretty early to look at this. I know the schedule release comes out on June 16th, so it's next Thursday. So we'll be able to see who these teams play. The first, for the season, obviously they'll move it around. There's going to be a lot of games moved around anyway because of this World Cup. You excited for that schedule release next week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to go. I just, it's just a matter of who's going to sign, and I probably wager some small money on futures. Don't save the big money for when you have a better feel for. But if you have a team you think might be about to sign some players and you feel good about, you like what you're looking at, jump on it.
Yeah, when we've been talking a little bit about the World Cup futures and Brazil. Now, last week we had France at plus 550 and Brazil at plus 450, and now in England, I think at plus 600. It's moving back a little bit. And basically, what I've been telling people is, look, if you had France, France isn't gonna. These teams aren't gonna move too much because they're all basically really good. It's not like if you had Iga Swiatek in the French Open and everybody else, like she was obviously going to win the tournament, but and she won the final, 6-3, 6-1. But there's no team like that that's going to go through and just roll. So, is there any team maybe? I like for me, I'm throwing out. Like I don't think Argentina can win. I plus 800. France maybe, but or not Spain. Spain maybe, but I don't think England's going to win just because they're England. I don't know if there's any of these teams. England's going to have a tough group because they got to play the U.S. on Black Friday. But is there any team on that list maybe you'd look at now and say, I might take a little chance on that?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm disagreeing with you. England had that just coming off that near miss. It might be their time.
Yeah,
they certainly have the talent, and I don't know. I'd probably go with them.
There's good value. I mean, that if you bet, when I bet the World Cup I bet it in 2017 in November, and I bet France. LJ, who's going to win the World Cup? Brazil, England, France, Argentina. Germany.
Yeah, Germany.
All right, he says Germany at plus 1100.
LJ, Germany doesn't seem to have.
That's the thing. I mean, I took France at 700 and then bet them again in the final. But it's just the only problem with futures is, if you're tying up your money for like a while, like right now, if you bet it today on June 8th, even if France, say you bet 100 on France and you get 650 back, you're not getting it till December 21st, and you could bet it on probably December 1st and get plus 600 odds. So you're saving your money. If I know our guy Brian Rowe likes to bet things 3 years in advance, but
I did do one futures bet, and it was the best thing out there. It was Oklahoma to win the Women's College World Series. That's about as good a lock as you're going to get right now. I did that about 3 months ago. They're a huge favorite. So.
Let's see if we can get that.
I'm sure you can't get it now, but there's a future. You know,
We had it, yeah.
I think
We
down.
had it somewhere. I saw somewhere. I mean, because the College World Series is down to the 16 right now. So, let's see. But yeah, it's. There's definitely like I tell people all the time. We talk about rugby all the time. Yeah, Lex talks about Iga Swiatek. I talk about rugby all the time. When you look at the rugby league lines, and they've already changed since yesterday. See down to minus. You guys must have been betting. There's you have the availability to maybe win some stuff on that. So I always think it's interesting.
You might notice, or one of your viewers, like at the Olympics last year, you could bet on track and field. Did they do that for the World Championships every summer, or is track and field just the only time you can really bet on that is the Olympics? I don't know.
You can bet. I know sometimes they will have the Diamond League things.
Okay.
But yeah, there's not much. But what I know when the like let me see when the next Diamond League event is. When you have the Diamond League events, you could definitely bet on that.
Because we talked about this last summer. We got really nice odds on this thing, most in Trent. It seems like there might be some bargains in track and field that people don't even know about.
So the next meet is actually this weekend in Rome. So you can bet Pesapalo. I don't know what Pesapalo is. I have no idea what it is. I keep seeing it on here. No offense, Town. I have no idea what it is. All right. Yeah. But yeah, I know. Like we were talking a little bit about some of the Wales tied it up. So let me pull these scores up. Belgium only won 6-1. No, Wales did not tie it up. Lex Steele. The Netherlands scored. It is now 2-1. Netherlands scored in the 90th. Wout Weghorst scored in the 94th minute. So there's your over 1.5. You cash. So we got Netherlands, big cash. I think we talked about Belgium. I don't even know. We didn't really look at these other games. I find it real tough to look at Bill was talking about how the Nations League games and the African Cup of Nations games are always 1-0 or 0-0. I mean, it's notorious. I think we talked about that last year before the tournament started, how it was like that, especially the African games. I mean, every game, I think, right at the beginning, I think I said take the under in every game, and it was like 10 in a row that hit last year, right?
Yeah. Is it me or the Mexican games under a lot, too? Doesn't seem like
a
lot in Mexico.
Yeah, Liga MX. Hey, can you turn your microphone up a little bit? Is that?
I don't know where that static's coming from.
Oh no, it's all right. It's just the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. I think. Yeah, when you look at the Liga MX games, it's always like that. It's like 1-0, 1-1. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of low-scoring games, and I think sometimes the books take a little longer to catch up to that. So, yeah, you can definitely do that.
I've had some success with unders in Mexico. Not a lot, but some. Yeah. Just, I don't know. It's just like the Mexican national team. They have trouble scoring, too. I don't know.
They don't score. Yeah, my guy Myron, who's down in Belize, he roots for Mexico, but they don't score enough goals. They're like their striker plays for Wolves, and it's almost like watching Wolves when you're watching Mexico. Like every game is like, it's going to be 1-0, You just don't know it's going to be. It's either going to be 0-0 or 1-0 or 1-1. And if it's 1-0, you don't know which team's going to do, but one of the teams is going to score a goal and the other one won't.
Right.
And it's so they're very predictable. And if you take the under a lot of times, in those games, because the Premier League they never have unders more than less than 2.5.
Right.
So,
yeah, they haven't had a real score since Chicharito was in his prime. And that's been a while now.
Yeah, yep. That was when he was scoring goals for United, leading them to titles back in 2011 and 2013.
Right.
Have you looked at the basketball game tonight? Any interest in that game?
I have no feel for that. I want to be honest here.
All I know is they said that the one referee that's refereed the Boston, the referee that's doing the game has refereed 12 Boston games this year, and Boston's 12-0 in the games. So as soon as I heard that, they showed him a picture of him in a Boston jersey. So I said, man, I'm on the Celtics tonight, -3.5. So I know our guy Bill is a Celtics fan. And I think the hockey is tomorrow night, right? Because the other game is a sweep. So the Rangers are. Now all of a sudden, the Lightning are favored in that game in New York, which is crazy. I guess New York's got some injuries, so.
Yeah, I've painted myself into a spot I don't like to be in, because I have a parlay that would pay off very well if the Warriors win, the Lightning win, and I had Real Madrid winning. So I think I got one of the hardest part out of the way.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm a Ranger fan, so I hate it when I do that to myself.
You did you do that before the playoffs started or before the series started?
Before the series started. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right about when Real Madrid made the final, I made that bet.
Oh, okay.
That to get that one in is good, but.
Yeah, that was +2. Yeah, to win the trophy, they were probably like +160. I mean, that's.
See, when I made the bet, I didn't even know that the Rangers were going to advance this far. I just took the Lightning, but now, I'm kind of stuck. I'm sure you've been there before too.
Yeah. There's been times when, I had North Carolina. I had North Carolina to win the East, and I had them to win the title. And I didn't want to. They're up by 15 at halftime, and I didn't want to hedge, but I'm like, man, now I got a chance to hedge, and I'm glad I did, because I'm not glad they should have won the game, but at least I won some money. But
sure.
it's always
yeah, you almost hit it really big, right?
Yeah, if North Carolina would have won, I think I had them at 120 to 1, so I would have won like 5. I won about $2,000 on them winning the East and like betting on them to do it. So I won like 2,500. I can't get greedy on the tournament, but it could have been like 7,500. That's almost where we were talking about this the other day here. Like, you got to be smart and say, you know what, my heart says North Carolina's going to win, which they should up by 15. We just ran out of gas, but my head says, you know what, now I have a chance to cover it, and in case something does happen, you're set. So, but it's hard to do that. Like sometimes you don't do that because you say, your heart gets too much involved and stuff. But yeah, well, I think the one bet you had last year that was really good, that really should have cashed if your coach didn't blow it. I mean, Arsenal should have finished in the top 4 last year. They had it, and then all of a sudden the Tottenham game was bad. Well, it's a rivalry game, and Tottenham needed to win the game, and it was a red card. But the game that was bad was the Newcastle game. Yeah, that's the game that ended up tanking everything, because Like if they win, if they beat Newcastle, they finish fourth, and that's a really you almost handicapped it perfectly, but the team lets you down. So I know that happens a lot in soccer, but
Yeah, and what made that bad, of course, is Arsenal really didn't beat anybody who was good this year. They just did a good job of beating up on the teams they should have, and in that case, they did not. So
yeah, exactly. Yep. Now, I know you used to. Have you been tailing the Yankees at all at minus 800 every game? It's almost impossible to bet them at this point, but
yeah, I'm not making a lot of money because the odds aren't any good, but I've been betting on the Yankees just about every day this year. Yeah, when you're hot, you're hot. I mean,
it's crazy between the Blue Jays are down now, but you look. I mean the Yankees are just. I mean they're 40 and 15. It's ridiculous. I mean they haven't played anybody, but they just last year. They were losing to these teams, the Orioles. This year they're just pounding these teams. And it's they're
winning. They're winning most of these games by more than one run. So I've been doing that a lot.
Yeah, you see the plus 108 goal difference, plus 108 run difference here, and they've only allowed 160 runs, which is I think best in the major leagues. Yeah, it is. I mean, so their pitching is doing really well. I mean, they've scored a lot of runs, 268. I mean, there's some other teams. The Mets have scored 297, and St. Louis has scored 271, and Dodgers. So the Yankees are top 5 in scoring and number 1 in runs allowed. I mean, that's why they're 40 and 15. So, if you can get them, you see the game here, the Yankees are minus 1.5 is 109. So I mean, it's basically even money. So you could put them maybe in a parlay or whatever, but.
It's kind of like the old Mariano Rivera days. Like, if the Yankees had the lead going after 6 innings, they were they're going to bring that home 99 out of 100 times. It's just the way it works. With the bullpen, you got to play bullpen. So, whereas, you take a team like the Phillies with a bad bullpen, sometimes you might want to bet on the other team to rally.
Yeah, exactly. I think that sometimes you can wait. Exactly. The Phillies are playing the Brewers tonight. And the Brewers are pretty good. You see the line. The Phillies are actually favored. I guess Nola's pitching, against Adrian Hauser. But I mean,
if you're sharp, look for a team that used up its bullpen the night before. And make a live bet. Other team may come back on them if their bullpen isn't ready to go. You just have to keep your eye on that. But I'm sure I'm not real good at that, but I'm sure there are some baseball people out there who study that very carefully.
Yeah, I think too. So the one thing where if the team gets beat at home the first 2 games of a 3-game series, you bet them the third day and. I think there's some ways to bet. I don't bet a lot on baseball just because even the best teams lose 60 times. But I think we've talked about this a lot. I think the I don't want to say the easiest. It's not easy, but the best way to make money, I think, is to bet on soccer, and to bet these, the bet whatever good teams or the way you do it. With the parlays in game and trying to double your money or whatever. Sometimes in baseball, I mean, these games where you just don't understand what's happening. The pitcher just goes out and just doesn't have his stuff, and then I just don't think you see that as much in soccer where Mbappe's not playing well and someone else will pick up the slack or something.
Yeah, well, you see on the various sports books, they like to give you these prop bets on players. This guy to hit a home run or whatever. This guy to strike out 5. The reason they're offering them is because they know they're sucker bets. I think. I don't like individual prop bets in baseball because even the best home run hitter is only going to hit a home run less than 1 out of every 4 games. That's 40 home runs for the year. How many people do that? So I think those are all kind of sucker bets, to be honest with you. My opinion. So,
Yeah, I agree. Even if, yeah, because you get if you get plus 280 odds and you're hitting a home run every 4 games, you're losing money. I mean, if
right.
the one time you win, you're gonna get you bet 100, you're gonna get 280 back, and then the other 3 times you bet, you're gonna lose 300. You're losing $20. So
Yeah.
and it's I think baseball is the one sport where it's just like I know people like to bet it, but it's just you could get suckered into betting a lot of bets in a game, and just like all of a sudden you're down. I
Right.
just don't. It's not as much. I mean, with the soccer schedule every day, you can and there's only 30 baseball games or 15 baseball games in the league every day at most. Soccer. On a Saturday there's 300 games. You could find 2 games to bet. So
Correct. I'm with you. I soccer is my main thing for sure. I don't know why, but I seem to have more success in that. And when you're betting on a quality team and they're ahead, they usually really know how to bring that home.
yeah,
They go into a defensive mode, and it's just like NBA, you'll see teams blow leads all the time. So I don't know.
it's crazy basketball. Yeah, look, I mean, you in soccer, if these teams get up 2-0, these decent teams, City will come back from 2-0 every once in a while, like they did to win the league. But if they get up 2-0, the chance that the game ends, there's a better chance the game ends 5-0 than it does that it ends 2-2. I mean, there's probably a much better chance.
Right, because even if they're not attacking, they're just going to possess the ball and just kick it around. And, the other team's going to have such limited chances.
I think in the Premier League too, a lot of these teams that City plays, if they get down, they're just going to pack the box and say, listen, we don't want to get beat 6-0. So, goal difference is big. So they'll just take a 2-0 defeat and let them kind of go around. So.
Right.
All right.
What do you think? You think Raheem Sterling's going to Arsenal or what?
He's going to go somewhere. I think they're going to. City looks like he's going to go. I mean, is Jesus supposed to go to Arsenal as well?
What's that?
Is Jesus supposed to go too, or?
Well, that's the article I'm reading here on Sky Sports, but
I think I don't know. Between the two of them, I think I'd rather Jesus. Jesus scores. I know they're both like the same, but I don't know. I think either of them improves the team. So, I mean, at this point, it's just like that's what like Manchester United now. Everybody's getting mad because the guy Darwin Nunez is going to go to Liverpool, but like. Liverpool's got Champions League, and plus, like, Manchester United needs to fix like 4 other areas before they fix that. Like, they could go find somebody like Oshman or somebody. But, like,
well, that's out of there. So they do something up front. So
yeah. I think this is a big summer for Arsenal because they have to. Newcastle's spending money this year, and they're spending money in the winter, and they're going to spend money next summer. So they have to make sure they're staying ahead of. At some point, Newcastle's going to catch everybody, but you want to just try to stay ahead of them as long as you can. But that's the problem with United. I mean, these teams, United, Tottenham's got Champions League, so they're going to be able to spend some money. But yeah, it's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So make sure you're following all the Max Wagers Network all day. Midday Money, Sean Higgs, Morning Wood, Allie Burns, Just Parlays, Back to the Window, me, Game Time Decisions. And Adam, thanks for Adam McColder coming on. Rick will be on more as soon as all the local. Any of these Pennsylvania softball teams still left? We got a couple left, right?
Oh yeah.
None of the Jersey teams are left. They all got beat, and all the baseball teams are out. So we're done.
Yeah.
We still got 10.
Just have the viewers out there. You might want to take a look at the Washington Mystics tonight. I think they're in the underdog role, but I think they can win this game.
There you go. There's a tip for you. If you can find that on your book, take it. All right. Well, all right. All right. So we'll see everybody tomorrow. We got AM Plus Money back on here talking about all kinds of stuff. So make sure you tune in tomorrow.